Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to bring you this special bulletin. Superhero movies just don't seem to be getting the credit they deserve. At least, according to ye old Captain America. Chris Evans comes in, former Captain America's Chris Evans on comic book movies. If it was easy, there'd be a lot more good ones. No, Chris. Maybe if some of the writers and directors had any sort of actual talent, you'd have a few more good ones. They don't all have to be great. But it would be nice if they weren't all steaming piles of Triceratops poop. MCU's former Captain America, Chris Evans, has weighed in on the... God, Jesus Christ. Hold on. Okay. Weighs in... I thought they were repeating themselves again like every other article. Slightly disappointed. Oh, well. You expect certain things in every other article. They're going to repeat the title in the byline, in the first paragraph, but not this time. Kudos to you. Former Captain America, Chris Evans, has weighed in on the current state of the comic book movie genre, and he feels that some superhero films, don't get the credit they deserve. Now, while I will agree with that, nothing over the past few years, with the exception of Spider-Man No Way Home, has been worth mentioning other than to point and laugh at. You look at the budgets, and then you watch the movie, and nothing really makes sense. Then you look at the acting and the director, and you wonder, mostly the director and the writers, how did they get these jobs? Because they don't have resumes outside of, I don't know, one or two credits in a TV show. I understand that at some point, in order to replace the older directors and writers who are on their way out, they're retiring and whatnot, you have to bring in some fresh talent. But you don't give fresh talent a $200 million budget movie that the studio wants to make $1 billion on. They don't have the credentials, they don't have the merit, they don't have the skills necessary to push that sort of movie to the box office return that the studios want. You need to work on smaller projects, prove yourself, and I don't see any of the most recent batch of directors and writers having those chops. Superhero movies haven't had the easiest time of things, over the past couple of years. You would say that, like I said, since Spider-Man No Way Home, there really hasn't been anything to write home about. As audiences and critics alike seem to be feeling increasingly jaded, one might say fatigued. Yes, the fatigue is not over superhero movies. You have quite a few people looking forward to, excited about Daredevil, Deadpool, and Wolverine. Also, a lot of people excited about Disney Plus's attempt at Daredevil, although I don't have any hopes for that, especially after Echo. If those are the people responsible for it in any way, shape, or form, don't hold out hope, folks. They'll ruin it. But people are excited for Deadpool and Wolverine. It has nothing to do with superhero fatigue. It has to do with bad movie fatigue. Getting beaten over the head over and over again. You get excited and you get let down. After a while, the bad writing takes hold and people just aren't interested anymore. They'll wait for a review. They'll wait for the Rotten Tomatoes score. I don't know why. But they'll probably wait for more along the lines, wait for the audience score over the critic score, because critics are bought and paid for shills. Anyway, moving on. With the recent output from Marvel Studios and Warner Brothers DC, it's been quite terrible. It's become fashionable. No, it hasn't. It's just something, fashionable? Maybe from the mainstream journalists, mainstream so-called journalists, who are suddenly finding it in their heart to actually review these movies poorly because, it's in fashion now, so it's okay to talk trash about Madam Web and the Marvels because, they're bad, but also seems to be the end thing to do, so I guess I'll agree with that one. It's fashionable to take shots at comic book-based movies these days with well-respected directors such as Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola, and Quentin Tarantino outlining their issues with what the latter described as the Marvelization of Hollywood in a recent interview. The old school is always going to have a comment on the new school. Whatever new and popular and the in thing to do, everybody's going to have something to say about it. Obviously, these, Scorsese, Coppola, and Tarantino, They have their own style of movies, and I'm sure when Tarantino was putting out movies, other old school directors had a few things to say about his style. So not sure how much room he has to talk. Some would agree with their assessment, and most would probably admit that they at least raised some valid points, but with so many negativity directed at comic book movies, it can be easy to forget that the genre has produced some truly brilliant cinema, not in a really, really long time. I'm sorry. Those days, Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the Marvel MCU, before Disney, before the dark times, those were fantastic movies. Well written, decently paced. They had a plan, something that Disney products don't seem to be having nowadays. They don't have a plan, no forethought, no nothing. MCU's former Captain America, Chris Evans, was asked for his take on the current crop of comic book movies during a panel at Emerald City Comic Con. What did he have to say? Quote, "If it was easy, there'd be a lot more good ones." Again, no, like I said before, if these writers and directors had any talent, they'd be a lot better. And you can talk about studio oversight, and you have to put this in and that in, whatever. Studio interference. Blame it on whatever you want. Ultimately, it's just the writers and the directors who take the fall. Studios push their money, push their agenda. If after a while, you have directors and writers just walking away and saying, no, not the easiest thing to do, I will admit. But after a while, when they're not making money, when you have writers and directors and actors and actresses saying no to this garbage, maybe there will be changes. Stop blaming studio interference, because it's not always studio interference. Bad writing, bad directing. Moving on. If it was easy, there'd be a lot more good ones. Not trying to throw shade. Sure you are. Of course you are. Talk shit. Have some stones. Some are objectively phenomenal films. Objectively? There's a B in there somewhere. Not recently. Again, I don't think since Spider-Man No Way Home has there been any sort of blockbuster superhero film at the theater. To be fair, it's been quite a while since we've seen a phenomenal superhero movie. Are you going to say it? Going to name the movie? Even leaving personal taste aside, the box office speaks for itself when it comes to general audience feels. Can Deadpool and Wolverine turn things around? It'll turn things around for one movie because so many people are actually legitimately excited to see Hugh Jackman as Wolverine interacting with Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool and wondering, what are they going to do? How many jokes are going to be made at the expense of Disney Marvel? That's what a lot of people are hoping for. Will it be funny? Probably. Will it be good? Holding out foolish, possibly moronic hope that it will be good because it is still Disney, but apparently Ryan Reynolds is adamant about what he wants and what he doesn't want in his movie. So if he has the control and he exerts that control, is that the right word? Anyway, then it should be good. Will it save anything? Will it turn things around? Of course not. It takes more than just one successful movie in a genre to turn things around. What it's going to take is, again, I keep beating the dead horse, talented writers, talented directors that understand pacing, that understand storytelling, that understand hero's journey. It's okay for a character to fail, because when they succeed, they're cheered on by the audience. People love a good story like that. Let's see. We wouldn't get against the drawing power of The Merc with the Mouth and Logan, and it's definitely worth keeping those record-breaking trailer views in mind. That's true. Let's see. As for Evans and his potential to return to the MCU as Steve Rogers, if the paycheck's there, he's coming back. There's no denying that. Rumors persist that he will play a role in Avengers Secret Wars, but if recent comments from the actor are any indication, he's in no rush to pick up the shield again. Probably because they haven't made the right offer. Money talks. Daisy Ridley probably wouldn't have come back to Star Wars if she wasn't getting a big fat paycheck. There's some comments Brie Larson made when they asked her about what her future with the MCU was, and she said she didn't want to talk about that or had nothing to say about that. But I promise you, if you give the money, if you have enough zeros on that check, they're coming back. It's human nature, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not trying to put any sort of negative connotations behind that statement. It is simply a statement of fact. It is the truth. Most people can be bought. And we're talking about actors and actresses here. There's nothing wrong with taking a paycheck to make a movie. Just do it. You would do it. I would do it. Has nothing. Yeah. All depends on the circumstances. Quote. Let's see. What does he have to say more? Ultimately, from Chris Evans. Ultimately, I really hope to just maybe act a little bit less in my life. Okay. Unless the money's there. And he said in the 2023 interview, I have a lot of other interests. Look, by no means have I climbed any sort of mountain in this field. I have no Oscars, paperweight, and I'm not lumped in with other names that are at the top of the mountain in any way, but I also feel very satisfied. But you're still doing interviews and, I guess, some sort of publicity tour? Huh. What do you make of Evans' comments? What do I make of them? Continuously calling it superhero fatigue or saying that it's just difficult. You're disregarding the idea of talent, the idea of merit, the skills involved necessary for making any sort of good story. It starts with the writers, goes to the directors and the studios with their interference. Stop interfering. Well, some interference is probably okay, because depending of whether or not you want the director to go off the rails with one or two of their stories. But you need talented writers, talented directors, and talented actors and actresses. I do not think we are lacking in the actors and actresses department. There's talent out there to be had as far as the acting goes. When it comes to the writers and directors, it leaves a little bit to be desired, especially with the selection of TV shows and movies that have been coming out of Hollywood, out of mainstream. Will there be any sort of turnaround? Well, Deadpool and Wolverine is not going to do any sort of turnaround. It will be a successful movie. It will make money, but it's not turning anything around. It's going to take more than just one movie. Probably a nice little slew of movies, especially if Disney wants to get into the good graces of the family. And I don't see that happening anytime soon. But let me know what you think in the comments. Leave a like, leave a dislike. Do all those nifty, wonderful little YouTube things. Stumbling on my words. Bye-bye.